this video, we're going to take a look at the midpoint formula. So we'll start off with what is a midpoint. Well, a midpoint is just the point that divides a segment into two congruent segments. So we have an example here. We have line segment AB, and we would say point M here is our midpoint. Okay. Another thing we have is a segment bisector, or any kind of bisector. This could be a point, a ray, a line segment, or a plane that intersects a segment at its midpoint. That's what makes it a segment bisector. So that word bisect means to separate into two congruent segments. So we have line CD being the segment bisector of segment AB in this case. Okay, so let's look at an example here with the segment bisector. So we want to identify the segment bisector of RS and then find TS. So our segment bisector is just our line right here. So our segment bisector is line L. And now we want to find the distance of T to S. So it's just this distance right here, which is represented by 11 minus 2x. Well, since this is a segment bisector, we have RT and TS, which are congruent to each other, so we can set them equal to each other and solve for x. So we can say 5x minus 3 equals 11 minus 2x, and we can just solve this equation for x. So we get 7x minus 3, and we add 3 to both sides. 7x equals 14, divide by 7, and we get x equals 2. Okay, now we're going to take 2 and we're going to plug it in right there for x. So we get 11 minus 2 times 2, which is 11 minus 4, and we get TS is equal to 7. So those would be our two answers for example 1. All right, now we do have what's called the midpoint formula. So if we have 2 points, let's say in this case point A and point B, they're represented by their coordinates x and y. So we have x1, y1, and x2, y2. These are points in a coordinate plane. Then the midpoint M of line AB has the coordinates x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. In other words, you're just averaging the coordinates that you're trying to find the midpoint of. So we'll look at a couple examples. The first one, we are given 2 endpoints and we're going to find the midpoint. So we're just going to take and add, right? So this would be like x1 and y1. This would be x2 and y2. So we can take 1 plus 7 and divide it by 2 for our x coordinate, and we can take 2 plus 8 and divide it by 2 for our y coordinate. So 1 plus 7 is 8, 2 plus 8 is 10, and our final coordinate, 8 divided by 2 is 4, 10 divided by 2 is 5. So the midpoint would be 4, 5. Another example that we could see with midpoint is them giving us the midpoint and one endpoint, and we have to find the other endpoint. So here's what that would look like. The midpoint is -1, -2. So here's our x coordinate and y coordinate of our midpoint. One endpoint is 4, 4. So we'll call 4, 4 x1 and y1. Okay. So now we know that our x coordinate of our midpoint has to equal -1. So we can use our midpoint formula. We can say 4 plus my other x coordinate that we're trying to find divided by 2 is equal to -1, because -1 is what we're trying to get for our x value of our midpoint. Now this is going to give us our x coordinate of our other endpoint, and we can do the same thing. 4 plus y divided by 2 equals -2. And we're going to solve these two equations to find the coordinates of our other endpoint. So we're going to multiply both sides by 2 on both of these equations. So that'll get rid of that denominator. So now we have 4 plus x equals -2, and we just subtract 4 from both sides, and we get x equals -6. So -6 is our x coordinate, and over here we get 4 plus y equals -4. We subtract 4 and we get y equals -8. So the coordinate of our other endpoint would be -6, -8, and that is the midpoint formula.